everyone, I'm Angela and welcome back to my channel. Today is a very special video for me because this is to celebrate the first 1,000 subscribers. So thank you very much to each and every one of you.
I also want to thank wholeheartedly Jess X Kirby. She made me, or the symbolic version of me, into a piece of art through her drawing. Go check her Instagram out. And thank you again, Jess.
And to thank you, I decided to make a video with one of my patrons, the very lovely Andrew. Here is Andrew.
Hi.
He's my second patron on Patreon. And yeah, we engage into excellent discussions. It's always very nice to chat with you, Andrew, and to discuss all the topics that I address in my videos. So would you like to introduce yourself and tell our audience, the other members of the symposium, why they should, perhaps, if they want, join the Patreon?
Sure. Well, the thing about Angela's videos is that, one, they're very informative. Two, they are impartial. And it's very important these days, if we want to learn about something like modern and esoteric religions, is to, get through the if you like, sort of. So if I need information, I just go straight to Angela because I know that I'm going to get a researched and fair view. And if she doesn't know something, she's going to tell me. She doesn't know. So the thing is, if you were with somebody, like at a pub having a drink and something like that, and someone gave you some really valuable information, you'd be sort of tempted to buy them a drink and thank them. And that's what Patreon does. It means you can just easily thank the person for the information you've got. And I think it would be the best investment you've ever made because you get so much more than just watching videos.
Oh, that's lovely, Andrew. And even if you can't contribute that way, even if you like and comment my video and share them around, it's gonna really, really help me and help our little community grow. To celebrate the first 1,000 subscribers, I thought of doing a Q&A with Andrew so that he can ask me all the questions he wants. So, do you have anything for me, Andrew? Is there anything you want to?
Lots and lots. And probably this video will go on forever, but I'll try and keep it sort of short. But in a recent video of yours, you actually mentioned how esoteric religions are the outliers of our current sort of culture, and just studying those is a good way of actually getting to understand a culture. I just wonder if you could expand on that a bit.
Yeah, because I think that normally when you think about studying a culture, you think of what's dominant in that culture. So, for example, if you want to study religions in Italy, you would immediately think of Catholicism. But even though the dominant religious system, of course, tells you a lot of the story, of the cultural story of a country, even the outliers, even the minority groups, we may say, or the anomalies, hope that doesn't sound judgmental or anything like that, they can also contribute to the understanding of the culture of that specific place. Because, it's like when you observe something, it's not just made of what's in front of you, but also it's made of all the shades and all the different aspects of its manifestation. And groups which belong to outliers or minority religious groups actually can tell you how it is possible that that specific minority religion took root into that place. And especially since it's not a dominant religious system, but it's a minority religious system, it's still part of that culture. It means that there is something in that culture, embedded, ingrained in that culture, that allowed for that manifestation to occur. It's not like we have something inside the culture and something outside of it just because it's not the most popular one. Everything belongs to the context. So by understanding even those at the fringes, you understand better all the aspects and manifestations and shades that a culture has in its manifestation. Does it answer your question?
Yes, it does. Yeah. Yes, it's something I've been thinking about ever since I saw that video. It's just something that's going to keep me in my mind ticking over for quite a while. Like I say, thanks for that. That makes it even sort of more relevant to my thinking.
Yeah, and also, for example, when you said something, an aspect which is important, I think, is when you try and have a portrait of something, you also have to understand its boundaries. So if you cannot really see the boundaries of something, how can you tell what belongs to it and what doesn't? So it's not just what is in the middle or what constitutes the majority of it, but even the boundaries. All these apparently tiny and minute and minority aspects can actually be very, very important. I think essential to the understanding of a culture or a specific context.
Right, context. That's the word that was going in my mind right now. It's sort of having, without it, if you've got, as you say, an image without the background, there's no context at all, and you can't understand what the relevance is. So it's sort of esoteric religions in a context of, say, Christianity or another faith like Islam or Buddhism, whatever. It helps you to understand the larger from the smaller. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, we'll get to the next question, and it's to do with the persistence of magic. The thing that I find remarkable is that how magic survives, or belief in magic, should we say, survives through skepticism and persecution, or ridicule by church and science. And but it says, people are willing to even risk their lives, become sort of martyrs for their beliefs, that they hold them so strongly, and yet even so they survive. They change and evolve, but they survive through millennia. From the early Sumerians, we've got like the works of Enheduanna, the priestess, and her writings. And along with that, there are sort of spells and divinations and things like that. And it comes to Roman times, early Christianity. They talk there about faith, being able to move mountains. Well, if that's not magic, I don't know what is. And then right through to the modern day, you've got things like The Secret, which is a book that sort of says if you believe something, it will happen. And even modern Christians will open a Bible and sort of close their eyes and put their finger on a verse as a sort of form of divination. I just sort of wonder what your feeling is on why and how magic has survived, that's so strong throughout the ages. Is it filling some sort of fundamental need in human beings?
Well, of course, in replying to this question, I'm basing it on my opinion because normally in my videos I always tend to have references to back everything. So in this video we will be mainly basing my replies on my personal views and my takes, of course, as a as an academic in the field. So my feeling regarding that is that, yes, magic is sort of satisfying a need that perhaps human beings have. I don't think it's just one specific need. It can be multiple ones. So, for example, with shamanism and earth-based religions, I think that they are really rooted in the need that humans have to feel connected to nature primarily, but connected even in general. Because especially in our day and age, you go to a supermarket and you buy an apple, you do not see the tree from which that apple was taken. So there's a sort of disconnection between your life and the origin of the source of everything that is in your life, source from which everything in your life comes from. So I feel that for certain kinds of magic or magical practices, they fulfill the need for connection, whether it be a connection with nature or a connection, in general, like with the universe, even with the spiritual world, a connection with something that goes beyond just yourself. Also, in the occult and in esotericism, I think that they sort of fulfill the need for discovering the hidden world, the mysterious. Because as human beings, we are pretty aware that we do not know everything that is out there, and that our perception, even the fact that we can only perceive the world through our 5 senses, we cannot see or touch or hear everything that is in front of us. We can only perceive the small amount that our senses will allow us to. So this awareness makes us acknowledge basically that there's a whole occult world of things that we cannot know. And so the mysterious tends to be appealing to us because it's an exploration into the unknown, and even an exploration of the boundaries and the possibilities that us as human beings can reach. So I guess that if I had to narrow it down to 2 trends, these trends would be connection, feeling connected beyond yourself, and expansion. So it's like seeing how far you can go in your knowledge, in your agency. So I guess that these would be the 2 trends that come to mind when I have to think of why do people have believed in magic, even in times where it was dangerous.
Great, thanks. Yeah, it's sort of I've been learning the local indigenous language, Te Reo Maori, and it's quite interesting.
Andrew is from New Zealand. I didn't say that.
Yeah. Yes, we didn't say that in the introduction, but well, we're citizens of the world as well, I suppose. But just the way they think, what you can see in the language, it's interesting. Whereas they believe in a sort of form of what we call energy. It's called Maori, but different from Maori. But anyway, and that this energy imbues all living things and the land and things like that. And that gives it its own respect and its what they call mana. A bit hard to sort of get that across. But you can, even through, though most of them are now become Christians, there's still that belief system is so important that it just survived straight into modern times.
That's very fascinating.
Yeah. So we'll come to the next question, and that's I'm going to sort of get into into academia itself.
Ooh.
I'm just wondering about because I'm from a Western tradition, and I think sort of most academics are, and I wonder, especially with English philosophy and the study of religion, which has sort of started in the 19th century, I believe. Do you think there's an actual bias that's coming through in academia when it's comparing to sort of esoteric religions to the Abrahamic faiths, so Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, sort of using terms that that don't sort of fit into the way of thinking of other faiths? Sort of the word mind comes to mind. I know German, and there's no real equivalent to the word mind in German. There's Geist, but that's not mind, and spirit is something else again, and the soul is something else again. So is there a cultural bias in academia as we see it at the moment, do you think?
Do you mean a cultural bias against this kind of religious movements?
Well, not necessarily against, but just in the way of seeing them. It's sort of, I was talking to a young lady about animism, and she didn't like the idea of animism being about souls or spirits.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, I guess.
And it sort of contaminates thinking.
I don't think there is, to be honest. I guess there is more funding devoted to what are called world religions, but when it comes to scholars studying these religious movements like magic, practicing religious movements or Western esotericism or the occult, I think that especially here in Britain and even in the US, in the field of religious studies, they tend to be very accurate, and I think the trend now is to be very respectful of your informants and of the community and the religious movement you're studying. I think that in the past that wasn't the case. Like in the past, even if you read Fraser or Evans Pritchard or other anthropologists of the past, they had this sort of assumption that the people they were studying were sort of backwardly or something, or they kind of were mirroring a more primitive state of humankind. Whereas now I think that religious studies scholars are very, very much aware that they shouldn't really make any of these assumptions. Not that the belief in magic is backwardly or primitive thinking or anything like that. They just, normally religious studies scholars tend to address that kind of belief and that kind of practice and understand how that is embedded, rooted, and stems from one specific cultural context, or they try to understand how that belief is connected to one specific community. Like for example, witchcraft at the moment, especially in the United States, is very much linked with feminism and even LGBT plus community. So, for example, in that case, it's really interesting to study how come the practice of witchcraft has become so linked to that other kind of movement. So no, my answer is no. I don't think there is a bias among religious studies scholars. Of course, I cannot speak for other fields, but in religious studies, I think that scholars tend to be very mindful and very respectful which was one of the difficulties I encountered in my research, to be honest, because since I'm doing anthropology of religion in Italy, sometimes my informants were sort of had this sort of assumption that I was there judging them. So when I was doing participant observation and I was there and there were, people doing certain things, they were scared that I might be judging them, or alternatively, they were scared that I might decide. I mean, it was like, since I'm studying shamanism in Italy, some of them were concerned that I was there to say this is actual shamanism or this is fake shamanism or something like that. This is not real shamanism. So they thought of me either as a judge. Well, in both cases, the most popular assumption was that I was judging them in some kind of way, whether as lunatics or as fake shamans. And of course, I was not doing any of that, because in anthropology, you study people's behavior. You don't judge them in any of those manners.
Yeah. It's, I can see why people would be worried, especially in America. It's interesting that, connection to feminism and the gay movement, and that, of course, their dominant religion is sort of against feminism and LGBTQ. So you can understand that they were looking for a spiritual home, I suppose, that's more accepting. And that's sort of the pagans I meet. They're really open and accepting. They are themselves not judgmental, as far as I can gather. Not the ones I've met, anyway. Good. Now we come to a question that's a bit. I don't want it to be judgmental, but it's sort of because I'm talking about superstition, and to me, superstition is the remnants of old religions, things that just sort of carry on down through the ages. And I just wonder if there's an interplay between modern esoteric religions and superstitions. The sort of thing I'm talking about is sort of touching wood for luck, or throwing salt over your shoulder if you spill it to protect yourself. And also, I'm wondering if modern religions are creating their own sort of micro rituals that would be like superstitions. In other words, a quick little ritual for luck, or for to protect yourself, or something like that. Is there an interplay between these things?
I think that contemporary practitioners of witchcraft, hystericism, normally practitioners of magic really want to say what I do is not superstition. And there is actually a section in my PhD thesis about superstition in folk magic in Italy, and a sort of re-evaluation of superstition, if you like. I think that superstition is a form of magic which lacks awareness and depth, you may say. When somebody performs an act of magic, not only are they aware of what they're doing, and they are doing it with a purpose, but everything is sort of connected to a specific meaning, every aspect of it. And there's also a depth in the connection between the movement and the things they do and the meaning they carry with them. Whereas with superstition, it's just an act which has been repeated over and over again until the meaning behind it has been lost. And so what remains is just the act in and of itself, rather than the meaning that was originally behind it. So it's like saying, the words that you use in a sentence can carry a lot of meaning when you purposely pronounce them. But if you have something that you repeat over and over, like I do with so and basically, there are certain things that you just repeat because it's a habit. It becomes like a mindless habit, we may say. And when something is mindless, it loses its purpose, perhaps. But yeah, that's sort of my interpretation of superstition. They maybe were originally magical or magic-like acts, but over time, when something gets repeated without a purpose and awareness and an acknowledgement of the depth of meaning behind it, it loses its meaning, I think. As for from the perspective of practitioners, to them it's a reference trope. So when they say this is superstition, normally they are telling you that it is outside what they do. So it is like the benchmark of the outsider, the outsider practice. So what I do is magic, or what I do is shamanism, or however they label it. This is not superstition. For example, when somebody asks them, oh, do you do this as a magical practice or as a ritual? They would say, no, this is superstition. It is a way of basically setting out something as not belonging to what they do. So it does have a negative connotation of something which is not, does not carry as much value and as much power as what they do in their own actual practice. So I don't think that they do have small rituals as superstitious rituals at the moment. I don't think I came across any of them, because even things which are repeated, I wouldn't say they are superstitious in nature. If we agree on superstition being something that has been repeated and is repeated in a sort of mindless fashion. Does it answer your question, or am I rambling too much?
No. It's because I just wondered. A sort of part of that question is sort of how do superstitions come to be established, and probably the modern esoteric religions are too new to have that. So probably need several generations to and train. It's sort of like we Catholics cross ourselves, and that is a sort of ritual, and it's sort of but it's not regarded as superstition because it's part of an act of religion. And I'm just sort of just so. Yeah, I wonder sort of if some academic at some time will go look at all superstitions around, say, Europe and various countries, and then try and take them back in history to see what sort of rituals they came from.
Yeah, I think I came across a couple of papers on superstition, but they were pretty outdated. So there's not, as far as I know, at least, there's not much research being done on superstition. So yeah, that could be a very interesting topic to explore in further details, and especially in contemporary context.
Yeah, because then we're modern. We think of ourselves as modern, but we still practice little, superstitious things. Sort of.
That could be an idea for a video.
Yeah, it could too. Yeah. Right, now we get to the personal questions. Ooh. Okay, so the most fundamental one is, how did you become interested in modern esoteric religions as a subject of study?
Well, I kind of address a bit of my my journey in a specific video on called "How Did I Become a Scholar" or something like that. But yeah, I'd say that I became interested in this because, well, at first I was studying Buddhism, and I was specifically fascinated by the idea of the self, or the lack thereof in Buddhism. And I really found that Eastern religions, or I should say Asian religions, were extremely fascinating. Well, actually, yeah, I know how it started, because my degrees are actually in philosophy. And since I studied Asian philosophies, when it comes to Asia, philosophies and religions are sort of intertwined. So in my module on Eastern philosophy, the first thing I say is that in Asia, in Asian philosophies and religions are sort of mingled together. So you cannot really separate one from the other. If you think about a Western philosophy, you think about, for example, Kant or the empiricists, whereas in Asia you would think about Buddhism, and even when there's Indian logic, is very intertwined with some of the Buddhist schools of thought. So yeah, it tends to be much more linked to religion. So by studying Asian philosophies / religions, I got interested in the philosophies like in Tibetan Buddhism, because I learned Tibetan and Sanskrit, so I was mainly specialized in Tibetan and Indian philosophies and religions. And with Tibet, in Tibet there's a form of shamanism called Pen, and also there's the Tantric Buddhism, which includes aspects of magic. And in India there's Tantrism, which has strong magical components. Same goes for the yoga tradition. So from that point, I started to become interested in how those kind of practices, and whether those kind of practices were being practiced in Europe as well. So at first I was interested in it from a historical point of view, especially because in Italy they tend to favor historical studies. So I did a study on a text from the Renaissance on natural magic from a Neapolitan philosopher. I'm from Naples. So yeah, I got to access, to the original text in Latin, and it was extremely interesting. And then I got interested in the contemporary world. I went to a pagan gathering once, and I saw all the connection between what I had studied in the Renaissance and in the natural, especially in the natural magic from the Renaissance, and what people were practicing in the contemporary world. And so I thought of, moving forward in my studies and exploring more that kind of field from an anthropological point of view, because before that I was doing it more from a philosophical point of view.
Right. Yeah, I'm interested in all sorts of different types of music, and one is yoik, which is the music of the Laplanders, the Sami people. And when you hear it, you think, oh, that's like Native American Indian music. And then you suddenly realize it's all over the place. It's sort of like it started up there somewhere and just spread throughout the world. And watching your videos, I realize it's now even further than I thought. It's like in Europe, it's in modern, modern countries, and sort of the first world as the second world. And that it's survived and just still keeps going is quite amazing. Right. So the next question is, who do you regard as your heroes in the field of modern religious studies?
Well, I interviewed one of them, which is Jenny, Jenny Butler. Yeah, as I explained in the video where I interviewed her, she was really important in my journey because, as I said, in Italy, they tend to study this kind of topics. Well, they don't study them as much. And also from a historical or philosophical point of view. Whereas while I was finishing my master's degree, I came across Jenny's video on Irish paganism and witchcraft. And to me, it was a very enlightening moment because it was like, wow, there are people who study these kind of things from an academic point of view. I want to do that. So, yeah, and that was a moment when I realized that it was actually a thing. It was possible to study those contemporary religious movements from an academic point of view, because up until then, I thought you could only study them from a historical or philosophical point of view. So it was not a possibility in my mind, but it became one when I saw her video. So, and I also really like her both as a person and as a scholar. Then the second one would be Ronald Hutton. I had known Ronald Hutton for much longer than I have Jenny, because I read The Triumph of the Moon when I barely knew any English, so it was quite challenging for me. But yeah, what I admired of Ronald Hutton, which I got to meet at a conference actually, and we spent an entire day together, and I realized, wow, he's also an amazing human being, not just a brilliant scholar. I really liked his study, and even in that case, I was amazed by the fact that you could study magical practice from an academic point of view. But also, I really liked the fact that he was really loved within the pagan communities. I mean, I can't speak about everywhere else in the world, but pagan communities in Italy, at least the most educated pagans, they love Ronald Hutton, and they tend to love academic works as well. So I thought that I would have really liked to become a Ronald Hutton, somebody who tackles this topic from an academic point of view, but is also known and acknowledged in the community. So he's another hero of mine. And a third one would be my supervisor, Susan Owen, which I also interviewed on my channel. She's very lovely, and I will always be grateful to her, because she didn't know me at all, but she trusted me with my skills and with my research project. So yeah, I really, and also when I got to know her as a scholar and as a person, I really admire. She taught me everything about anthropological research, and I really love that she, even when she teaches and she's in a class, she's always able to learn something from what this student or this other student had said, and her openness, and the fact that she's always, I don't know, sort of learning from the world and from people, the way she interacts with other, with the thoughts of other people is really inspiring to me, because it sort of teaches me how to stay open-minded and how to be really open and being able to see brightness where sometimes it might be difficult, and never think of yourself as this supreme mind, but always being just open to understanding and learning from others, regardless of their status or their education or anything like that. So yeah, I really admire her for that.
Great. I'll have to check them out. Right, so the last question: if money was no problem, you had $1 billion or something like that, and you've got your doctorate, what topic in your field would you most like to study?
I think that the one thing I'm the most passionate about is magic. So in every way possible. So I'm fascinated by religious practices which include magic, by philosophies which include magic. It's just magic per se that really fascinates me. So I guess that if money was not a problem, so if I didn't need to get paid to do research, I would still do research probably, or write books. I'd like to, I'd like to become a writer as well. I guess I would continue to study magic in different contexts. If I had a lot of money, I would study magic in faraway countries, for example. And so, I guess that I'd like to study magic for the rest of my life, provided that brings me enough money to get a living out of it.
You were talking about writing. Would you write academic books, or would you also write fiction?
Well, I can say this, I guess. There have been 2 shamans who foretold me that I would have written a novel based on, do you know Carlos Castaneda?
No.
It's a novelist. Basically, he was doing his PhD in California, and he had this encounter with a Mexican shaman. And then he wrote a novel allegedly based on his experiences with Don Juan, this shaman. And I was foretold by a couple of shamans that I would have written a novel based on things experienced on the field as an anthropologist. So I'd like to. I mean, I've always liked to write. I was foretold that. We will see whether that comes true or not. As of now, I'm finishing up my thesis, so that's a book in itself, which I will be publishing, of course. And that's going to be an academic book, and I do plan on writing more academic books. But I'd also like to write novels, because I think that there are certain things that you cannot really say or convey in academic studies, which might still be meaningful and useful for people to know. So perhaps in the future I will also get on with a with a novel.
Yeah, that's great, because I love reading novels about which I learn from. So you're entertained on one side, and you're adding to your store of knowledge on the other. It's so if you write those novels, I'll certainly buy them.
I totally agree, because I think the best way we learn is through stories. So stories are really important, and storytelling is really important. And my supervisor also is a novelist, and she has written a novel, a fantasy novel. So it seems to be very popular among academics, especially in my field.
Excellent. Right. Well, I just thanks for that's my last question. So thanks, and I'd just like to sort of point out to the viewers, if you'd like to ask these sorts of questions to Angela, then become a patron. It's one of the really great advantages.
Yeah, and also that way we can grow our community, and we will have lots and lots of questions, and so I can make like videos with Q&As from based on your questions, and also I can make videos based on your suggestions, as I often do with following Andrew's suggestions. You also have very brilliant ideas, I think. I mean, when I get because every time I post a video, I really look forward to your comments, because they are never, just, oh, it's good. you're always able to catch something from the video and from what I say, which is, not banal, and it's always very insightful, and it makes me wonder how to improve on my skills, and how to get better with my content. So it's really thought-provoking, so I do thank you for that.
Welcome.
So this is it for today's video. Hope you enjoyed it and that you had fun with me and Andrew. So if you like this video, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, activate the notification bell, and as always, stay tuned for all the academic fun. Bye for now.